Hello, I'm Igor Kule, welcoming you to the next edition of Eastern Europe Review, a joint production of BELSAT TV and TVP World. In our program, we discuss events in Eastern Europe, focusing primarily on Belarus, Ukraine and Russia. In this episode, we take a look at the following topics. The Nazi face of Russian war propaganda.
It resembles ideological graphomania, which consists of a series of political and ideological signals.
The Lukashenkaregime in Belarus has freed several political prisoners under pressure of China.
It was a very worrying day. A huge number of families were waiting for information.
How has the Ukrainian army become a leader in the HR industry?
You have to put in extraordinary effort to join a combat unit.
Gennady Rakitin, a popular Z poet known for supporting the war with Ukraine, followed by hundreds of Russian deputies and senators, and widely subscribed to on social media, has been exposed as a fake. It has come to light that Rakitin was created by anti-war activists who published about 24 translations of poems from the Nazi Germany era under his name. Despite participating in poetry competitions, his true identity remained concealed.
Meet Gennady Rakitin, a 49-year-old graduate of the Faculty of Philology at Moscow State University. Until recently, he was an unknown Russian poet living a quiet life out of the public eye. A year ago, he decided to stir the hearts of Russian war supporters with his patriotic poems. To achieve this, he created a page on the VKontakte social network.
Special times call for special solutions. I will publish my poems. I hope my work won't be in vain.
On the anonymous account sporting a mysterious black and white photograph, the poet shared the fruits of his labor, poems about the war, his homeland, and his beloved president. Some of his works are accompanied by patriotic pictures and portraits of Putin. Interestingly, about 100 deputies of the State Duma and several dozen senators have begun to follow the poet's page on VKontakte. Additionally, his poem about the head of state was republished by many Z propagandists.
And while you look on from the garden, the blossoms are gloriously lit ablaze. The dawn is coming, and with it, the sun of your immortality.
Rakitin's talent was recognized at a patriotic poetry competition, where his masterpieces reached the semi-finals. However, it was revealed that his work was nothing but literary translations of German Nazi poems from the Hitler era. Gennady Rakitin himself turned out to be a project of Russian anti-war activists with the photo generated by a neural network.
We thought a lot about how to make an anti-war statement so that it would resonate not only with those already against the war, but also with those who actively support it. In a sense, we aim to cut the ground from under their feet so that the next time they see a patriotic poem, they'll consider whether it contains elements of Nazism, which they claim to oppose.
It came to light that the author of the poem praising the leader was none other than the committed Nazi Eberhard Müller, who worked for the Ministry of Propaganda during Hitler's rule in Germany. He dedicated his poem to the Führer.
This poetry, and I've read these poems, this has nothing to do with political poetry. It resembles ideological graphomania, which consists of a series of political and ideological signals that are perceived as relevant to the current situation, even though they have a different historical connection.
The last poem in Rakitin's short but bright career was self-exposing.
Gennady mocked you for a long time, with the Z verses on the wall. In the end, he drew a to war.
After the truth about the Z poet was revealed, some of his famous followers, such as the former head of the Roscosmos Dmitry Rogozin and Senator Andrei Klishas, unsubscribed from his page. Despite all the efforts of the authorities, Z lyric poetry is not in great demand.
They have their own niche, but it's limited. These are people who are ready. I mean, their readers are ready to applaud any patriotic activity simply because it supports the war and the president.
Even the most popular resources featuring Z poetry have only a few thousand subscribers. Among the authors of war poems are actual war participants themselves.
On Independence Day, July 3rd, Belarus witnessed the largest release of political prisoners in 4 years, with at least 17 individuals convicted on political charges following mass protests being freed. This development suggests that Europe may have found a way to exert pressure on Lukashenko's regime, occurring shortly after Polish President Andrzej Duda's visit to China, where he discussed, among other topics, the Belarusian-Polish border.
Several Belarusian political prisoners were released on Independence Day, July the 3rd. Human rights defenders are aware of up to 20 names, and this number continues to change. This is the first release on this scale since the mass protests of 2020.
It was a very worrying day. A huge number of families were waiting for information, for any confirmation. Imagine how many people thought maybe it'll be our relative who will be released, or maybe it'll be our martyr who will return.
The self-proclaimed President Alexander Lukashenko declared the imminent release of those convicted under political charges just the day before.
Don't be surprised if in a few days some very seriously ill people, as they have been described, who didn't manage to escape and are in prisons, who broke and destroyed the country in 2020, are released.
According to human rights defenders, some political prisoners were released through pardon, while others benefited from amnesty. The amnesty law that came into effect on July the 3rd applies to nearly 8,000 convicts. However, it was clarified that this law does not cover prisoners involved in high-profile political cases related to riots, incitement of hatred, and extremist activities.
This law is no different from previous amnesty laws. When I was still in prison in 2022, an amnesty was also announced, and we, the political prisoners, whispered among ourselves whether Lukashenko would grant us amnesty or not. He didn't.
According to the Vyasna Human Rights Center, more than 1,400 political prisoners are currently held in prisons. At least 254 of them are considered to be at special risk because of serious illness, advanced age, disabilities, or mental disorders. Among those released on July the 3rd was Ryhor Kastysiou, the former chairman of the opposition party Belarusian Popular Front, who was diagnosed with cancer while in prison.
It's really tough when you lack vitamins and your immune system completely breaks down, especially since there's no medical care at all. Plus, political prisoners aren't treated like human beings.
4 years after the mass protests in Belarus, negotiations were conducted with representatives of the regime in Minsk regarding political prisoners. However, the release of only a few of them occurred after the Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs, Radosław Sikorski, had threatened to close the Belarusian-Polish border for the transportation of goods.
Belarus sends us hundreds of migrants with Russian visas who entered Russia from countries with a migration risk, for which Russia and Belarus have lifted restrictions. This is a situation that can fluctuate. There are months when we have no migrants at all, and then suddenly 300 to 400 people arrive daily. It all depends on Belarus, whether it wants to improve its good neighbourly relations with Poland or worsen them.
The closure of the Polish-Belarusian border could potentially disrupt the major Chinese initiative One Belt, One Road. Polish President Andrzej Duda reportedly discussed this with Xi Jinping during his recent visit to China. Radosław Sikorski has set 2 conditions under which the border would remain open: the release of the Polish citizen Andrzej Poczobut from prison and an end to hybrid attacks involving migrants at the border. To confirm these intentions, a few days ago at the Małaszewicze railway crossing, Polish border guards conducted enhanced controls on Belarusian goods for 33 hours. This crossing is a crucial entry point for goods from China into the European Union.
Military recruitment is on the rise in Ukraine, covering positions from assault troopers to intelligence officers and accountants. Recruitment agencies report that military vacancies have increased 20-fold in the last 6 months. Prospective recruits are being offered salaries comparable to those in the IT sector.
Vasilina, call sign Sova, is a 21-year-old recruit of the 3rd Separate Assault Brigade. Despite her young age, she already has experience in the army as a vehicle technician.
We were sent there to disarm and neutralize the enemy if they used chemical weapons.
Vasilina has been at the training center for 3 months. The young woman has already chosen her specialty. She will be a combat lifesaver, dedicated to saving the lives of those who will continue to defend Ukraine.
To get the position, you have to put in extraordinary effort to join a combat unit. You have to show that you are genuinely worthy and capable, because it's easy to go to war, but difficult to return.
While Vasilina is preparing to be deployed to the front, Vlad, a bartender, just yesterday successfully passed his first interview and is now undergoing a physical test to assess his readiness.
I had been thinking about working with FPV drones, so it's like pursuing a career in engineering or drone operation. I think this represents a new trend in military structure that will continue to grow and advance.
The 3rd Assault Brigade Recruitment Center receives on average 10 recruits per day. The assault troopers require mechanics, drivers, and engineers skilled in soldering and programming drones. Ukraine's main intelligence directorate is also actively recruiting. The first public recruitment campaign has already begun. The selection process is quite complex and involves several stages. The agency aims to recruit the most highly qualified individuals.
Active units need physically fit and healthy people prepared for heavy workloads and certain physical difficulties. For technical units, for example, the professional, mental and other qualities which are specific to technical professions are much more important. The requirements for candidates are high, both in terms of professionalism and patriotism.
Ukrainians and foreigners of every nationality can serve in the International Legion at the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine, where recruitment is also underway. The foreigners come from more than 50 countries around the world. The main criterion in the selection process is the recruit's ability to adapt.
Above all, psychological qualities are most important. How intelligent a person is, whether they can act on their own initiative, how well they can get along in a team with different people and cultures that they may not understand but have to work with. Another very important thing is language skills. At least one foreign language is a must.
The International Legion at the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine consists of both women and men. They operate in high-risk areas such as medical evacuation, logistics, business management, and other support roles. The number of vacancies on Ukrainian job sites has surged due to military recruitment. Over the past 6 months, the number of advertisements for military service has skyrocketed, from just 1,000 to 20,000. According to experts, this marks the most significant increase in demand for candidates since the start of the full-scale war.
Military employers are among the top 3 employers offering the highest salaries. This is because military salaries, especially at the front lines, are comparable to those of programmers and top managers, but they also entail significant risk.
According to the Ukrainian recruitment agency Lobby X, there are 20 candidates for each combat position in the Ukrainian armed forces and 45 candidates per each non-combat position. According to the Ministry of Defense, 1 in 5 candidates applying to recruitment centers are women.
And that's all for today. Eastern Europe Review will be back next Sunday. I'm Igor Kuley. Please stay with us here on TVP World.